Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the preview for the 2025 Australian Grand Prix. Yes, it is that time again. F1 is finally back and I, for one, cannot wait for this weekend to get going so we can finally get a proper read of where everyone is, for now at least, and enjoy some hopefully great racing. Oh, I'm so excited to have F1 back. On the topic of the racing, Albert Park has been a bit of a mixed bag over the years, to be fair, with some truly memorable events, but also some not quite so memorable races taking place. The 5.278 kilometre, that's 3.2 mile, 14 corner circuit has undergone some pretty major changes in more recent years that have appeared to improve the racing in some areas, although we do only have 3 races to go off, so the jury may well still be out on that one. But the addition of 4 DRS zones has at least helped drivers when it comes to overtaking, and those zones, by the way, do remain unchanged for this year. Having said all of that, it's still a very tough track to pass on. The best spots are turns 1 and 2, where we've also seen some pretty big first lap crashes over the years, including back in 2002, where Ralf Schumacher went airborne over the back of Rubens Barrichello's Ferrari, which led to absolute carnage throughout the field. Turn 3 is another opportunity to make a pass and another corner where we've seen plenty of incidents too. I mean, who can forget Martin Brundle's horrific crash at the first event at the circuit back in 1996? As Murray Walker said at the time, miracle of miracles that he walked away from that one. And although not a traditional overtaking spot, we have seen drivers make some moves at the fast chicane of turns 9 and 10 or on the run to that chicane in recent years, thanks in part to the addition of the long run and the DRS zone that precedes it. It is also worth noting that following big crashes for George Russell and Alex Albon last year, organisers have made changes at turns 6 and 7 with the exit curb modified to now be around 90 metres long, and it's been switched out for a negative curb as well, which means it sinks below track level rather than rising above it and removes the transition between curbing types, which should help prevent cars becoming destabilised. Artificial turf behind the curbing has also been removed and replaced with half a metre of concrete before the gravel trap, and the barriers have been moved back and been realigned, with the Tech Pro also getting an extension. Now, as F1 is celebrating 75 years of the World Championship in 2025, I thought it might be a nice idea to use these previews to take a brief look back at some of the memorable events that have taken place at this year's circuits. Albert Park has hosted the season opening race many times over the years, starting in 1996, which means we've had a lot of drivers making their F1 debuts at the track, and this season we have a heap more rookies making their debuts, including Kimi, Antonelli, Gabriel Bortoleto and Isaac Hadjar, with Ollie Behrman, Jack Doohan and Liam Lawson all kicking off their first full seasons too. It is a big ask, but can any of them replicate the incredible first outings we've seen in Melbourne, including Jacques Villeneuve taking pole and finishing second in 1996, having looked on for the win before an oil leak caused him to slow and allowed teammate Damon Hill to catch and pass him? Or Lewis Hamilton passing world champion Fernando Alonso around the outside of turn 1 on his way to P3 at the 2007 event? Or even Kevin Magnussen's third place finish, P2 classification of course, after Daniel Ricciardo was disqualified, back in 2014 on his debut for McLaren? We shall see. Also, the last time Albert Park hosted the first race of a new campaign was back in 2019. Well, technically I suppose 2020, but we all know how that went. And a lot has changed since that race in 2019. At the time, Lewis Hamilton was the reigning world champion, Charles Leclerc was just starting out with Ferrari, and Max Verstappen actually went on to take Honda's first podium since 2008 on Sunday. On top of all of that, Lando Norris, George Russell and Alex Albon all made their F1 race debuts. Have you heard of those 3 before? And just on the rookies, by the way, it is kind of crazy to think that after a static driver market between the end of 2023 and the beginning of 2024, we now have 6 drivers starting their first full season in F1 this year. 6 is about a third of the grid, for goodness sake. Oh, and 6 is also the number of dry tyre compounds in the 2025 Pirelli range. Oh yes, that's right, forget qualifying, forget the racing, this is the bit you've all been waiting for. It's tyre talk time. So the compounds available for this one then are on the soft end of the range and are also the same selection as last season, and they are the hard C3, the medium C4 and the soft C5. Also worth a reminder that we have a new C6 kind of ultra soft dry compound this year, which will be used at some, clearly not all, street tracks. Back to this weekend though, in terms of strategy, the track surface isn't all that tough on the tyres, but they are still put through a moderate amount of stress, especially on the left-hand side with the left rear likely to be put through the ringer. Graining was a factor last year, if you remember, but it didn't really compromise tyre performance, but something worth keeping an eye out for over the course of this weekend. Track evolution is also moderate, 3 on Pirelli's 1 to 5 scale actually, but as I'll mention again shortly, there is a lot of support race action, so plenty of rubber will be laid down. Last year's winning strategy was a 2-stopper with Carlos Sainz starting on the mediums and then running 2 sets of hards to the end of the race, pitting on lap 16 and lap 41. It is actually also worth noting that although a very different track, teams have a lot of data on the C3 as it was run so much during testing, so it is highly likely the hard will be the preferred race tyre once again in 2025. The total pit lane loss time last year was largely between 17 and 19 seconds, and each of the last 3 races at the track have featured at least one full or virtual safety car period. All of this dry tyre talk is all well and good, but it could be completely irrelevant though, on race day at least, because at time of recording there is a high chance of rain. 90% chance is the highest I've seen, but the FIA currently says 80%, so that could really mix things up on Sunday, although, should be said, I've also seen forecasts saying it'll stay dry, so let's wait and see. We'll find out who's right soon enough. As for the weekend schedule, well, it's an early one here in the UK, across Europe, and of course elsewhere in the world too. But if you are on the other side of the world, you can rejoice, as it means you actually get some F1 action at a reasonable hour. Enjoy. So the first race weekend of the season starts with FP1 at 1:30 AM GMT. Not even going to bother going to bed, and that is followed by FP2 at 5 AM. FP3 gets the Saturday track action started at 1:30 AM with qualifying later that morning at 5 AM. And it is lights out for race 1 of 24 on Sunday at 4 AM, and once again that is in UK time. And if that's not enough for you this weekend, we've also got Formula 2 and Formula 3, as well as rounds of the Porsche Carrera Cup and the Australian Supercar Series. A packed weekend to kickstart the new season. Oh, very exciting. Now, still to come, I'll make my first round of race weekend predictions. Hopefully they'll go better than last season, but sorry in advance. Before that, though, let's have a quick run through a few news stories and talking points ahead of the action in Melbourne, including a quick-ish rundown of some of the big changes since Abu Dhabi. So first up, on the eve of his home Grand Prix, it has been confirmed that Oscar Piastri has put pen to paper on a multi-year contract extension with McLaren, despite the fact his previous deal was set to run until the end of 2026. On his deal, Piastri said it was a great feeling knowing he was part of McLaren's long-term vision and is proud to be continuing to represent the iconic team for many years to come, adding that he's excited to fight for the big prizes as a McLaren driver, and after last year's achievements, including his first 2 Grand Prix victories and helping the team secure the Constructors' title, he's even more hungry to stay at the sharp end of the grid. Honestly, I've not really got much more to say on this. I mean, given how well he's done with the team, how he's improved and developed over the last couple of seasons, as well as McLaren's long-term vision, this isn't really a massive surprise, and it's surely a no-brainer for the team to lock him down nice and early. Next up, Sauber has announced the date that Jonathan Wheatley will begin his new job as the outfit's F1 team principal, and, well, it's sooner than perhaps we were expecting. A statement from the team revealed that he will start working that new role from April 1st this year, as the organisation pushes ahead with its transition strategy, of course, becoming Audi from 2026. The former Red Bull sporting director will lead the management team at Sauber alongside Chief Operating Officer and Chief Technical Officer Mattia Binotto. All of that means Wheatley will make his race debut as the new Sauber team boss at the Japanese Grand Prix across the weekend of April 4th to 6th. I think it's fair to say it's a big year ahead for that team. And finally, for this little rundown, the winter is over, and perhaps as this preview hints at, we are about to go racing apparently. But there have been a fair whack of changes since the season finale in Abu Dhabi, so here's a quick run through some of the, I suppose, headline grabbers if you like. The bonus point for the driver who sets the fastest lap of the race is gone, meaning it's back to being a maximum 25 points up for grabs on Sunday for drivers, 43 for the teams. We've also had an increase in the requirement for fielding a young driver during free practice, meaning teams will have to run a rookie twice per season per car. The minimum driver weight allowance has been increased to 82 kilograms, and as a result, the overall minimum weight limit of the car without fuel also increases to 80 kilograms. That will increase again by 5 kg when a heat hazard is declared to allow for the added mass of a new driver cooling kit. The FIA has tightened up the rules on DRS mode, stating that there must now only be 2 positions, brace yourself, opened and closed. I know, shocking. So no mini DRS tricks, at least in theory. Let's see. with new front wing flex tests coming into force from the Spanish Grand Prix. Drivers' comments are going to be policed more tightly with harsher punishments lined up for persistent rule breakers. Yeah, the FIA has also closed loopholes around formation laps and damaged cars, and any car starting from the pit lane from this season must now join the rest of the field for the formation lap before returning to the pit exit for the start. On top of that, the race director will now be able to order a driver to pull over and stop if they have significant damage to their car. Restrictions on the number of gearboxes that can be used over a season have now been dropped, with the governing body saying it is satisfied that the reliability has rendered those restrictions obsolete. Visa, Toro, Cash App, Alfa Rosso, RB, Tauri have simplified their name for this season, so instead of the debate around VCarb or RB, they're now calling themselves Racing Bulls. And as already mentioned, we've got Liam Lawson, Kimi Antonelli, Jack Doohan, Ollie Behrman, Isaac Hadjar and Gabriel Bortoletto all starting their first full seasons in the sport, but they aren't the only drivers to find themselves at new teams. Esteban Ocon is now at Haas, Nico Hülkenberg has returned to Sauber, Carlos Sainz has made the switch to Williams, and in case you hadn't heard the news, I mean, to be fair, it has been kept very quiet, Lewis Hamilton is now a Ferrari driver. I know, I was as shocked as you. I think he's going to be one of the big talking points this weekend, don't you? The most successful driver with the most successful team. How do you think he'll get on? Let me know. But anyway, let's do this. It is time for me to make my first race weekend predictions of 2025. Here comes the disclaimer. As always, please do not take these too seriously. They're just a little bit of fun. But if you do disagree with my picks, then you can let me know yours in the comments section down below. And by the way, if you are new here, firstly, welcome. But to give you an idea of how truly bad I am at these, I scored 56 out of a possible 164 points last year. So, yeah. Right, enough of all that then. These are probably the toughest picks to make of the year because we really are just going off the potentially unreliable testing data, gut feelings and, quite frankly, vibes. So although predictions are generally just guesses, that's even more the case early season. No denying McLaren look like they have the advantage as it stands with Ferrari in the mix as well. And according to Jos Verstappen, yeah, Max is feeling more positive after some good simulator sessions. So who knows, we could see a three-way fight. At Mercedes, though, Toto Wolff is playing down his team's prospects early season, saying he expects those three teams to have the advantage. So drama, or dare I say potential fibbing from Wolff aside, I will rule these silver arrows out for this one. If you caught my final 2025 predictions on Tuesday, you already know I'm letting my heart run my head over the race winner, but the rest is new. I'm going with Lando Norris for pole position, perhaps heading up an all-McLaren front row. But I'm actually going with his teammate, that's obviously Oscar Piastri, for the win. We know he's quick and I can see his home crowd giving him a boost, especially if Nigel Mansell is right and home fans give you more pace. I'm not sure what the science is behind that, but, you know, maybe. As for the podium, I will split the McLarens and go with hope more than expectation, Charles Leclerc P2 and Norris P3. Although, given all the hype and for the, I guess, romance or at least the story of it all, it would be quite cool to see Hamilton on the podium in his first race for Ferrari. But I'll stick with that top three. The best of the rest, or top of the midfield, once again this season, that's the 5th best finishing team on Sunday. I really am excited about the Williams team's prospects this season, and although it's very early to make calls like this, I reckon we could see a great scrap between them and Alpine for P5 overall. But this weekend, I am going with Williams for top of that midfield pack. Some quick bold predictions before I go. Why not? These are separate to the main ones as a reminder. But let's focus on some rookies here. So I'll say Kimi Antonelli shocks us all and out-qualifies George Russell. I did say bold, to be fair. Ollie Behrman scores points on Sunday. And let's go with Isaac Hadjar, P10 on debut. Now, obviously, if the rain does hit, that would change things massively with the main predictions. So I guess if we do get a wet race, swap Piastri out for Verstappen and I'll go with a podium of Piastri and Hamilton. There we go. That is it then for the Australian Grand Prix preview, but don't forget to let me know your thoughts and your predictions ahead of the weekend in the comments section down below. And if you're up for it, you can join me for the qualifying and race watch-alongs this weekend on the channel. And for the latest news, reaction and analysis from the world of Formula 1, head on over to planetf1.com. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.